this is one of the few times that we're actually interviewing someone that we know very well. We worked together with her years ago, and we always say that she is one of our biggest success stories because after going pro se herself in California, Monique went on to go to, here she is, law school. Let me see if I could get her on here. But Chris and I were in a conference, here she is, last week in London because our second book just released. I'll hold it up for a second because this is not what this live's about. But anyway, and Monique sent us a message while we were there about this crazy new legislation in California. And so I was like, well, Miss Law Student, let's have you talk about it with us. So thank you so much, Monique. I know it's been years that we've talked about doing this, and I'm thrilled at how far you've come since we first met you.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a long time, and I tell everybody I recommend Been There, Got Out to every person I come across who's been in similar situations. And as you know, I always say that you and Chris helped me uh, in innumerable ways find myself again. So I am always indebted to you. So I'm happy to be here.
Oh, no, we are just thrilled to have met you also in real life when our first book came out. So that was super cool to be able to give you a big hug. But anyway, I know a lot of people are really, really interested on what is happening in California because we know that legal abuse, I always say, is fortunately and unfortunately our specialty. I spent 10 years in the legal system. You spent many years in the legal system. People run out of money. That's why we end up representing ourselves, especially in this country. And we are often against exes who are either filing vexatious litigation where they're just constantly sending motions and we have to keep going back to court to deal with it, or the flip side where my ex is not complying with our agreement or court orders. And so I am forced to go back to court again and again and again. And you know, that's basically who we work with constantly, hundreds of men and women all over the world. So tell us what is happening in California.
So I'm very excited to share that our Senator Rubio, she's from District 22, which covers like Los Angeles, going east, San Bernardino, Monrovia, Covina, those areas. So it's not necessarily my district, but super close to me. She, if you don't know who she is, she started in 2018, and she's done a lot of work for domestic violence survivors and advocates by extension. So she on March, actually last year, May 1st, 2025, she introduced this bill, which is now Senate Bill 1192, known as the Reclaim Act. And it is designed to specifically address the post-separation abuse of the vexatious litigation. So that's super exciting because she's already been in it. I think she's had 3 restraining orders herself. Yeah, she understands that, the abuse continues on and the court becomes a weapon. So this is very exciting. I really want to just kind of say to California, because I know you are not from California, you have a lot of viewers who are not. We have very good coercive control laws here embedded in our family code. So we have a family code 6320, which is our coercive control law, which speaks to like if you're being molested, if you're being attacked, you're being stalked, sexual battery, protection for your children, for your pets, protection for people who are trying to isolate you, deprive you, control you, manipulate your finances, all of those things. So this is really an extension of that. She's kind of, because that is a law, and because those are already really embedded in our civil procedures, she's expanding that to be more of what we need, of what we know we need, that the court sometimes misses.
Yeah, so this gets into how somebody can fill out do an affidavit for you that you are a victim of litigation abuse. Can you go through some of those things and explain it in layperson language on what
So
it means? And everyone's like, what does this mean for me? I have court tomorrow.
All right. So as I understand it, there's basically three main points, right? There's the definition of a victim, and then there's the affidavit component that you just mentioned, and then there are the filings. So the first definition, the victim definition you would want to, I mean, you wouldn't want to, but you might have to meet is to be found by a court to have met victim of domestic violence through their conduct, which is usually through a restraining order, right? That kind of signals what's going on. But you can also have been found through a court to be a victim of a crime that includes domestic violence. So perhaps maybe the crime itself, there's additional crimes committed and domestic violence was embedded in there. And it could also be a person who is protected by, this is the exciting part, the civil orders and the criminal protection orders. So this is kind of expanding from criminal laws into the civil, right? Which includes family court. So this is really exciting that people have had, and I'm not sure if the temporary restraining orders, because they're only three weeks here in California, if that qualifies. But I know a restraining order and a CPO are part of that. Once you meet that definition, you get an affidavit to be written, and it's a statement, signed, notarized, and that can be from a domestic violence advocate. As long as they have the 40-hour training under our California Evidence Code, which is 1037.1, then that person can write a statement for you, as long as they know you. A mental health professional, like a therapist or a counselor, can write a statement for you. And then, of course, you have to have some evidence to support your claim, right? And I think that would probably, I think every case is different, so I can't give a blanket statement, and I'm not a lawyer, but I would
You're in law
say
school.
I'm in law school, but I'm not a lawyer. But I think it does go to what we already know is if you're experiencing domestic violence, you kind of are your own private investigator anyway, and you're
Mhm.
documenting things yourself anyway. Even though you're going through all of this emotional turmoil, you're still expected to provide the court with this factual evidence, and who else is going to have it except you? So it kind of goes, it still speaks to that where you have to have some evidence of that. But I was also reading that oh, the judge will actually review the previous litigation. And I didn't see that it was the previous stream of litigation. It was just the prior litigation that the other person brought you to as a party, and will evaluate whether it is frivolous. And previously, it had to be frivolous and abusive. So they really took the abusive part out and just, is this frivolous? And that could be meant to injure, to insult, but also to maintain just contact with you, which I think is huge.
Okay, so with frivolous, like often we talk about frivolous litigation. In my head, it's when somebody is filing motions and the court denies them or dismisses them. Is there
Yes.
something else like that would be, frivolous, but where it's like you're wasting our time? Stop filing stuff.
Not even anything that I've read since last week. I've been like devouring a lot of information, so not anything I've read, but I think it speaks to that exactly. And I think a key term there was filing to maintain communication with the other party. So yeah, sometimes they're just filing stupid things because why? They can't see you. You're on a court ordered app and you're dropping and picking up kids at the police station, and they're not supposed to get next to you, but they can see you in court, and they can see you in the hallway, and they can see you in the parking lot walking up to the courthouse, right? All of those opportunities. So yeah, the next thing would be your filing. So if it gets approved by the judge that your previous litigation was frivolous, and you
Mhm.
meet the standard of a victim as a definition, and you have affidavit and some evidence, then from that time on, you can file under this Reclaim Act once it becomes law, and all of your fees will be waived. Yeah,
Oh
which
my
is
God.
great.
That's
Um,
insane.
and
That's incredible.
you can have an attorney represent you at no charge. And yeah,
Wait, where are you going to find a family lawyer? Is it a family lawyer? Like, who's going to represent people at no charge? Because that's
I
something we never see in family court. We see it in criminal court.
just see it in criminal court. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I think this speaks to that overlap, right, of criminal procedure going into the civil procedure, which is also family court, because there are crimes being committed in this community, but it's under the civ. but we really need to
Mm.
have it encompassed with the crime. So I'm hoping that would mean, I mean, I don't have an answer to your question, but I'm hoping that would mean maybe a criminal prosecutor who's maybe doing some work on the side could pick up a family court case for this reason. I think that would be great.
Yeah, I mean that would make such a difference. So the other thing when you were talking about prior litigation, like I think about if someone's done it so many times, we talk about patterns all the time. I mean, in my own case, I'm in Connecticut. We also have coercive control laws. We have Jennifer's law, but I was able to, in the latter years, because I was in court for all those years,
Mhm.
mostly post separation, I was able to argue to a judge that the legal abuse under Jennifer's law should be protected because I was being forced to come to court all the time. It was like, how are you supposed to work? How are you supposed to have a life when you're constantly in there dealing with something where the other person's not getting anywhere except to deny me of my freedom to live and work because I had to stop everything every time there
Right.
was like new court motion. We had, as you know, dozens and dozens of court motions.
Yeah, you did. You had a lot. Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think it does kind of, again, I can't represent anybody or anything, but I do think it does call into the 14th Amendment, right? Deprivation of our life and our liberty to live. And that is what's happening. I mean, we are not able to live because we are either being called to court or, like you said, there's non-compliance in such a gross manner that you have to go to court because, especially if you have children, you want to keep your children safe, and there's just constant non-compliance, 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 and you feel so unsafe and so uncertain on what's going to happen when I drop off my child today. I don't know if they're going to come home. I don't know because they never follow the court order.
Right, right. And then there's all the back and forth with the communication, which is a whole other topic.
Which is a whole other area of harassment and stalking because, yeah, you call or you send a message because you're worried about your child, and then you get 52 messages back. Like, oh,
Yeah.
God, that's, yeah.
All right. So these new things about having a domestic violence advocate help file the affidavit. I can't do that for someone in California, even though I am a state certified domestic violence advocate. It has to be a Californian domestic
Yeah.
violence advocate.
Right. It has to be under our evidence code, which again is 1037.1. And that requires 40 hours of domestic violence training. And so, and there's different components that are covered in that particular training. So yeah, it has to be someone who's state certified through that training or a mental health professional. And of course, I think it would speak to your anyone's benefit who's trying to enact this, that it's someone you work with, not just like, hey, I heard you're an advocate, can you write this for me? I think there
Okay.
should be some level of rapport to make your claim more valid.
So I'm guessing, that a lot of people, and I wasn't aware of this when I got out, but there are many local domestic violence agencies that
Mhm.
you can get all kinds of free resources from that people never think to go to because I know in my mind, I was like, oh, mine's not that bad. That's
Yeah.
for battered women, but it's
Yes.
absolutely not true, especially with the laws in both of our states. Um, but I was thinking, actually, somebody sent a comment in, what about protection for the people who write the affidavits? Because we know how vicious our
Hmm.
exes can be. If
Hmm.
let's say Connecticut has something like this, if I wrote up a statement for one of our clients and my name is on it,
Hmm.
what happened to me? Like, what am I subjecting myself to potentially knowing how these people just,
Right.
don't stop?
I think it's similar to mandated reporters, teachers or people who have to make those reports, and sometimes their names are attached. But I think it's something good. I mean, it's a good point to bring up, and maybe to even mention that to Senator Rubio, right? I think this whole thing is really about um, getting up and making those phone calls, contacting her office, contacting the legislator, letting the right people know that we want this to be passed. But I don't think it would hurt to say, thinking further down the line, can there be protections embedded in this for those who do write the statements? And I just wanted to go back to say that this Reclaim Act is also co-sponsored by the Family Violence Appellate Project. So they do a lot of work there in Oakland, and they do a lot of work in supporting, like you were saying just a second ago, as being those advocates and those support people that sometimes you don't think about reaching out to.
Mhm.
They are co-sponsors on this bill as well.
Wow. Yeah. See, a lot of people just are not aware of all of the resources that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I'm really glad you mentioned that. All right. So with this particular SB 1192, um, you guys have coercive control laws, but I thought this one had already passed, but it sounds like it's moving through. So what should people do to be able to use this bill?
I think the first thing to do again is just to really advocate, even advocate from your couch is fine. Contact your senator, because it's scary to go out if you're in this position, but to contact Senator Rubio's office, contact our legislation. You can always send old fashioned letters, emails. I did read somewhere that a push for this is a little bit focused on survivor stories because I don't know who they are, but that makes a bigger difference when you hear from the actual survivors on how if this bill was enacted, how their story might have ended up differently. But I know that's difficult for people to come out and share their story. So I would think maybe just contacting Senator Rubio's office would be more beneficial as opposed to taking it public, right? But I
You
think
know what
definitely,
though, Monique? Actually, so I gave live testimony for Jennifer's Law, our coercive control laws that ended up passing from a bill to a law and went into effect in 2021. And it was during COVID, and so we actually were live streaming the testimony. Each of us had 3 minutes. So it was survivors, it was advocates, it was people from all over the world that were pushing for Jennifer's Law to pass. And in those 3 minutes, I was able to summarize what would have been different had that law been in place. And little did I know that I would still be litigating and able to effectively use Jennifer's Law to strengthen my case and do really well. But I think survivor stories do make a difference. But just
yeah,
to keep in mind, they don't. When you give testimony, at least in our situation, I imagine it's similar in California, they don't have time to hear your whole story. They usually have a time limit when people are getting up and saying the thing. So you don't need to go into great detail. But like you said, Monique, in terms of like if this law were in place, what would have been different for your situation? Who would have benefited in your family and how?
right. Yeah, so I did read along the lines this week that's really what they're looking for. I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a key component to getting this passed. But I also like how you mentioned the 3 minutes. I remember in the groups with you, like you got 3 minutes to say what you have to say, because you're lucky if you get the 3 minutes. So make it concise.
I know
And
now we're like five minutes depending how what the issue is.
depending on if you know your judge, maybe a little bit more. But I think that's true. Just keep it detailed, keep it factual, keep it. This is what happened, and if this had, if I could have relied on this,
Right.
it
Not
probably
non
wouldn't have.
emotional. Non
Non,
emotional.
non. It's just factual based. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So someone's asking if you have Senator Rubio's contact information or how
Um,
someone could find it.
I can definitely find it actually. I think I have my computer up right here. So let me go right into it. So yeah, you can find Senator Rubio. Her actual website, I'm bringing it up right now, is SD like dog SD 22 for District 22 dot Senate dot cal or ca dot gov. So one more time, SD 22 dot Senate dot ca dot gov. And there's a contact button there. You can contact her. You can read her biography. And she actually just introduced another bill on Friday, which is for the Domestic Violence Prevention Act, which is asking for anyone who gets restraining order to be monitored by GPS during that time that the restraining order's on.
Wow.
Yeah, so I want that passed too.
Yeah, that's great. Very, very exciting. So another question that we have gotten today and that we get all the time is like, okay, great, California, how do we get it passed in my state? So is there any advice you have for what people can do? In my mind, I'm always like grassroots, bottom up.
Yeah.
You start here instead of just thinking, oh, we have to like educate everybody, but push for it. That's how we got it done in Connecticut.
I think for me, it's a little. I don't know. It's a loaded question, I would say, because for me, what I bring to the table, as you know, Lisa, we were just talking about it before I logged on. I am very connected to my culture and my people, and a part of our healing is to be able to talk about it and be able to share, and be able to find your voice and be able to find people who are going to support you. And I don't know if that translates into a lot of different states or even different areas or different cultures. Um, but I know that being able to do that then gives you a little bit more strength to then go out into the world and say, okay, well, this is what happened to me, and now I'd like to help you, right? You want to pay it forward. And from there, that group, and it doesn't mean have to be like 20 people, just whatever those solid people are, can start to do that grassroots advocacy that you were just talking about, which makes a bigger difference, I think, in my humble opinion, than a singular individual. Although some individuals are very amazing and they can make crazy changes, I kind of believe in the power of people coming united. So I would really say becoming a little more active in this domestic violence advocacy world will take you, just by the nature of it, to meet people from other states, right? Like you and I are speaking
Mhm.
across the nation. And through that momentum, I think a lot of change will happen. But it really starts with a lot of self-awareness and reflection and acknowledgement of what happened, and healing that part of you that will allow you to speak.
Yeah. Somebody said start a support group. I think that could be tricky because to start a support group, you need to be in a certain place to be able to support other people, not just getting a bunch of traumatized people together, because
Mhm.
that could go in
That
possibly
could,
the wrong direction.
right,
But
that could,
yeah, but in our state, the way that Jennifer's Law actually started was I was part of a support group that was run by someone at the Domestic Violence Center called After the Storm, which was post divorce, that really got into what we dealt with after the divorce was over. And of course, legal abuse was a big issue. And our former state rep, Alex Kasser, was going around and finding people through the support groups. And she was the one who started putting the bill together, but she basically collected people's stories. So I remember meeting her in a coffee shop, and
wow,
then another person from my group, like, she was like, I want to know what your concerns are and what you've
wow.
experienced so I can use it to put together in this bill. So I would say, being involved in community, that's so important for healing, like everything you said, Monique, but also getting in touch with your local state reps to say, like, this is an issue for not just me, but for other people as well. And this is what we're thinking you can do. And also, now that a number of states are passing these laws,
Yeah.
refer to other states. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Be like, look what California's doing, look what Connecticut, Hawaii, now Utah just passed
Mhm.
legislation recently.
Yeah,
So
I had
that
like a
was
list.
kind of a shocker. That's amazing.
I had a list of states, and I was like, "Oh wow, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah."
I feel like it's been the wave, and like Chris and I went last week to this conference in the United Kingdom, and I always say you guys are like six years ahead of us because they've had coercive control laws, and I
Mhm.
think America used the UK as a model to start
Mhm.
those coercive control laws, and so why not? You have, if you're not in one of the states that has coercive control laws, like, look around.
Yeah,
Use other states as models. Sometimes even in court, if your state doesn't have those laws, you can still reference it, because the
yeah,
main thing when you're in court is to build a persuasive case.
right, right,
You
yeah,
can do that not just using case law.
right. No, absolutely. And even if you don't have a specific case or precedent in your state, if you do mention a case law from another state that has similar facts, I think it's really important to acknowledge this side and this side, but hey, this is probably going to be a better outcome if we go this way, you know. Yeah, I totally agree. And I, for our group, we are the Women's Healing Resource Clinic, and we're totally grassroots, just 6 women working and putting on, small community events and things like this, pop-up programming online, in person. But it's on that premise of just building community and being there to share about the information, because it's out there. But I think when you're in it, of course, you're not. It's so hard to research and see what law is going to help me out right now. Like, it's impossible.
Yeah, yeah, it's overwhelming, but that's why it is so important to connect with other people and be resolution focused. Like, this is what we need. Here's why we're entitled to it.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anything else, Monique, with these laws that people should know? I think just being here and giving people hope and getting them excited for what's happening in California, because you guys were also leading the way with the beginning of the coercive control laws. It was
Mhm.
California and Hawaii were the first two.
Yeah, no, that's why I wanted to come on. Again, SB 1192 and now SB, I think I said it was 857. Though they're very, very prominent, life-changing, life-saving bills that I think we do need to get behind and we do need to support Senator Rubio. And just if anyone's wondering, I don't know Senator Rubio. She didn't send me on here. I would love to meet her if someone wants to tell her I'm out here.
Oh,
Um,
Monique, you can do this yourself. You can contact her.
but I'm not sent from her office or anything. But yeah, I think finding women who are in positions of power like she is and really evaluating of if they're doing things for the people and supporting them, because again, sometimes we just can't, given our circumstances, especially if we're in a domestic violence relationship. We just left, we're 3 years out and we're still going to court. It's not for every individual to try to be like the change maker. Some of them are already out there, and just to champion them while they do the hard work, while you yourself go through your hard work, right, of your process and going through it, is also super important. So I
Yeah,
think just finding those change makers and supporting them if it's not something you're able to go out and do is super important.
yeah, yeah. First, we always say you got to take care of yourself and your family and win your own case, and then go out and do what you
Yeah.
got to do.
Yeah, I tell people that all the time when they come to our organization, and we just provide help. We'll just go with them to court or something like that. But sometimes they get excited because there's people who understand, and then they want to take on more, and it's like, whoa, but you still have kids. Your number one thing is this case. Let's get you thinking clearly, because this case is your world.
Yeah, yeah. So, Monique, how can people find your organization? And like,
So
what
you
part of California are you in?
So we're in Southern California, the Northeast San Fernando Valley. Although we do have representatives in Long Beach, in Downey, in East Los Angeles, right here where I live in the Northeast, which is like Silmar, San Fernando area. So we are a little bit spread out through Southern California, and we actually have an upcoming event in Downey, which is for the missing and murdered Indigenous peoples epidemic that's occurring. We do that every. Oh, I don't have anyone in San Diego. I see someone asked, um, which is another thing, another topic that we do champion because, I think Indigenous sovereignty and Native women and matriarchy is also very important. And that's one of the things that drives our particular group. So you can find us primarily on Instagram, which is WHRC underscore SoCal dot official, which I think it's the profile I'm on right now. And you could just send us a message as needed, and we'll be here to support. Again, we're totally grassroots, so we do as much as we can when we can, provided with our resources, and then we'll hook you up with other resources. We have a whole template of resources we can also send you.
Yeah. And Monique, I said at the beginning, I'll say again, like, you're one of our biggest success stories, not just for us and not just for your family, but am I remembering correctly that it's only a very tiny percentage of lawyers who are what you are? Can you say what that is? Because
Yeah,
that's amazing.
I think it's about 2% of women of color, specifically Latina or Chicana, are go into law and become attorneys. So yeah, it's a little bit of pressure, but it's a very big honor I carry for my family. The way I look at it, like a lot of our family, my family specifically, I'll talk about, came from Mexico during the revolution, and their job was to survive and to make a future for us, which they did. The house I live in is my grandparents' house, my great grandparents, and so yeah, and so they had that in mind when they came, and so what I have in mind now is just the next step. I might not be working in the fields, but I'm working so hard mentally, uh, and going through higher levels of education to now lay that forward for the people in my family. And I think that's probably the same for a lot of lawyers of color. So I'm happy to join those ranks.
Yes, and we are thrilled and cheering you on the whole time, and can't wait
Thank
to
you.
see what else you do with everything. So thank you so much, Monique. It, of course, is a pleasure to see you, and hopefully we'll get to see you in person again in the next year or so.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me know when you're out here. And if I ever get to East Coast before I graduate, I will let you know as well.
Great. All right. Take care and talk soon.
Okay. Thank you so much, everybody.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.